Please introduce yourself.
All right, so hey guys, this is the Purpose Project with my good friend Mr. Gallagher from Swickley Academy. So without further ado, let's get into some of the icebreakers. The first one is Mr. Gallagher, please introduce yourself. What's your name? Where are you from? And what do you like to do?
Yes, my name is Michael Gallagher. I I'm 60 years old. I used to teach at Swickley Academy from I guess I was for there for a full 18 years, 2002 to 2020, and then lost my job there. Then where I'm from, I'm originally from um, South Jersey. I was actually born at the Philadelphia Naval Hospital. Uh, we, my dad traveled around. He was in the Navy, so we were on the West Coast in Bremerton, Washington, for a year or so, and then we're back in the South Jersey area in south of Camden, and then so that's where I'm originally. I can remember New Jersey pretty well. And then we moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is east of here, Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton area. In 72, and my dad is still has a residence there. He's going to turn 90, and
Oh, wow.
fact, next week he's turning 90.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
Um, what do I like to do? Besides teaching and coaching, particularly basketball, and I was a football coach in my heyday, and the up in the booth and all that, calling the plays from offensive coordinator and all that. Um, I was also a dorm parent there, so I lived in the dorm 9 years with freshman boys, and then the last 3 years with senior boys. And then it was time to leave the boarding school life. So I went on to the Pingree School in Martinsville, New Jersey. I spent some time there, 97 or 99 to 2002, and then came out to Swickley Academy to finish out the remainder of my shortened career, but good career, I would say. Uh, Other hobbies, fishing and golf are passions of mine, mostly fishing, uh, partly for the relaxation effects and partly for the competitive effects, that you get when you're fishing with someone else. You just can't help it.
Right.
I have to catch one bigger than my partner in the boat.
Yeah.
So, that's a little bit about me. And yeah, so that's a good introduction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is your dad like? What does he do? He's
He
90.
was he was a practicing cardiologist for
Yeah.
from 72 when he got recruited by the fledgling program at the time. Um, in fact, I think one of his associates recommended he not go into it because he didn't think it was going to go anywhere as a field, and that was the best risk he took because it turned out to be a rather huge field, doing coronary angiograms or the other cardiac catheterization where they inject the dye into your coronary artery tree and find out where the blocks are. This is assuming, of course, you've survived your heart attack and
Oh,
actually made it to the hospital, right? So those are the patients he dealt with. They're at death's door.
wow, that's terrifying.
Yeah, and then so a lot of treatments came and went, and then in the 80s, in Dr. Andreas Grunzig came along and invented the balloon tipped catheter
Oh, that sounds
on
familiar.
his kitchen table in his house. Yeah, and it's kind of weird. So he figured out how to do this, and then he wanted everybody to know about it. And so he had these conferences, and my dad was at this conference at Emory, and turns out Dr. Donahue was at the same conference,
Okay.
right? And so when I had Joseph in class, he knew exactly what I was talking about because his dad had talked about him before, and he was okay. Yeah, my dad knew Dr. Grunzig at Emory, and I'm like, okay, great. Um, Dr. Grunzig unfortunately um, died in a plane crash on his way home
Oh my God.
after one of those seminars that he was giving in Atlanta. Because I think he lived in Puerto Rico, and he had to fly. He was flying his own plane back. It was a summer afternoon, Sunday, but he had to get back. He had patients to see the next morning. So I figured it wasn't that bad. It was like, 30% chance of thunderstorm, typical summer forecast. And so we got up there, but got surrounded by a couple of storms, couldn't get out of it. Down he went.
Jeez.
Unfortunately. passed away. Um, but the catheterization program became such a big field because you could save patients from having their chest cut open and have their sternum split, right? And then have open heart surgery done on to bypass the blockages. You still have to do that now anyway if it's the damage is the blockages are severe enough. But if he could catch it in time, if they had mild symptoms, you could inject the dye, find out where the block is, slide the catheter through, inflate the balloon, and open up the artery,
Well,
close it, and hope like hell it didn't slap shut on you. And so
yeah,
that would happen to some of his patients. And then the drug-eluting stents came on to prevent that from happening. Well, the stent stopped the closure, and to keep the platelets and the blood clots reforming, they coated them with antiplatelet aggregation compounds, and that's still, I think, what they're using today. I haven't checked on it in a while, so neither is he. He's been retired for 15 or well, he was seeing office patients in his 70s, but then that's how busy they were. You know, they were still asking him back to see follow-up patients when he was 75 years old and in the office.
that sounds like my stepmom's dad is an orthopedic for feet.
Oh,
For
really?
people with diabetes, they you know how like they can't really feel their feet
Yep.
that, and they
Oh, yeah.
often they just keep trucking along when their feet are extremely infected. But he probably sees a lot. Anyway, let's move on to the second question.
Yeah.
Are you still a teacher, or have you entered retirement? Have you considered returning to teaching if you have entered retirement?
Yeah. Right now, I'm retired fully. I was last the first couple of years after after Swickley didn't rehire me was I did some sub work at Shadyside and some sub work at the academy, and then due to some health issues, I really couldn't work. Not only could I not work full time, I had trouble even working part time. Developed a seizure disorder that is now we finally have the right medication that I don't get any side effects from it, and it'll prevent the seizures. Unfortunately, the drug is very expensive, so I have to cough it up for another couple of months before insurance will cover it for the rest of the year. But so I've resigned myself to the fact that I'm fully retired. Would I ever consider teaching again? Is yes, and I will be on one day on tax day in April. I'm going to be it's a totally different audience. I'm going to be helping my liver doctor teach the medical school students about hepatology and transplantation.
Oh wow,
Right, so that's going to be neat. He said, but he was kind of honest with me. He says it's going to be like classes you've had before, probably with younger students. Some of them are really engaging and ask a lot of questions. It's a really neat experience. Others are kind of sullen and don't really want to engage, and you kind of have to like pulling teeth trying to get answers from them. But and you have to come up with all the questions. So, you know, and those are so you could you don't know what you're going to get. But it'll be 2 full hours of teaching, and I haven't done any teaching since 2021, so this will be kind of cool getting back into it. Yeah,
that's I'm glad that I'm happy for you. That should be a good move for your
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
football
looking
career.
forward to it. Yeah.
It must be tough sometimes just being at home and I don't know. Do you have a wife?
Yeah, she is busy right now, but she keeps me busy as well. And so
Yeah,
I guess the degree of people think the degree of busyness is going to change. It doesn't. You
it
just
does.
do different things, you know.
True.
It's like when you're both working for 30 years, what do you think accumulates in the house?
Right.
Stuff. Okay, so now project from year to year is Larry, let's take the attic and let's clean out the attic. Well, let's attack the other rooms that have stuff in it and clean those out. And just general maintenance of the house. And then we since we weren't as busy as we were, we now got a cat and it keeps us
Nice.
busy.
That's cool.
If you've seen any of my Facebook posts, you'll see the Rory the cat.
Nice.
He's a Russian blue. He's worth about $1,500 in the open market. We got him for $126 from a safety shelter, a rescue shelter. So
That's cool.
yeah, so I'm keeping the house up and running, and future and projects, gardening projects that we're planning. I
Awesome.
mean, I'm just as busy now as I was before. In fact, maybe even busier because at least when you're teaching, you had like the full lunch hour.
Right.
You didn't have to get in the car and go do something, and that's what I find myself doing is getting into the car and running errands rather than,
You're
uh,
not.
yeah. And then what about free periods? I
Right.
didn't have any of them anyway. I always had kids in for extra help, but it was kind
Right.
of nice to have one to prepare a lab. Um, but even then, you're busy. So basically, if you're a science teacher, you're basically on your feet all day.
Right.
If you were doing your job right, anyway.
Right.
Uh, so now I'm still, but it's still time consuming. I find very little time to watch television. I have very little interest in it. I watch the sports. Uh, uh, I can be occupied by the hockey game, watching the Penguins, but they've been a little disappointing. They're trying to turn it on here at the end. We'll see,
Yeah.
but I follow Pitt basketball, um, and the major sports teams, the Steelers, and I listen to talk radio. Those guys banter back and forth. I get tired of that real quick too. And I try to stay out of the political arena as much as possible because it just leads to um, poor communication, bad discussions, and bad outcomes because you're usually competing with people that you know. And like, why would you want to irritate somebody that you know with
Right.
an opposite political belief and trying to? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But people do this all the time, and so I sort of make it a point to not do it and not try to engage when some troll tries to engage with me on online. Which I just fell prey
Yeah.
to today. I think finally I realized this person does not exist. This is some generated
Yeah.
AI program that's communicating with me.
It's kind of
So
like fighting fire with fire.
yeah, there's no need for it. There's a lot of other better things you can do with your life than argue with people that the people that you know, but and especially people that you don't know online. Who the hell needs that in your life?
Yeah. I've had some friends who've actually been banned from social
Yeah.
because of their
One of
troll.
my high school friends he's the only one. Is one of the five of us, the five musketeers they call us, and he's been banned several times from Facebook, but none of the rest of us have. The others don't even use it. I think me and him are the only one that use it. But
I just got back on Facebook. Actually, it's kind of cool.
yeah.
Meta. Also, yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one, I guess.
All right.
Motivated you to become a teacher? What motivated you to become a biology teacher? Did you ever consider getting a doctorate?
Right. So let's take I guess motivated me at an early age would be I don't know, I guess I was maybe hypercritical of my teachers. And with the background, I guess it was the Sisters of St. Francis who ran the Allentown Catholic School. Um, but even then, in the early '70s, it was sort of they needed to tap into to the lay people to fill up their faculty at the grammar school, first grade through eighth grade. But I didn't. I mean, they were mostly it would be essentially volunteer work because they couldn't pay them anything. Um, Later on in the '80s, when the parish got a lot more populated and a lot more money, then they could pay people. But so they didn't really have the. I always was sitting there thinking, man, I could do such a better job than these people.
Right.
And then I started, you know, when I separated myself from the rest of the come fail with me crowd, the so-called friends of mine who were the ones on the basketball team and because they knew the father of who one of the dads was the coach. If you didn't know, if you weren't friends with his son, you weren't going to get on the team. That kind of crap. Um, the I mean, they'd all be talking about, and we knew we had a math quiz every Wednesday, right? So what was I doing? I was studying for the math quiz on Tuesday night. I come in, it's first period, the math quiz. Everybody knows it's coming. What are they all talking about? What did Fonzie say on Happy Days last night? Right. And then they were talking about what did you watch Laverne and Shirley right after that? And what else? And none of them were studying. None of them were doing squat in terms of their academics. And so, of course, my academics were fine. So I was always at the top of the class. So I guess, of course, got made fun of, right? Um, and I tolerated that for about a year. And then I had enough of it because being a middle child, I had two older brothers. Um, so if there was one thing I could do, it was defend myself.
Right. Yeah.
So it was funny because and I would get obnoxious in my middle school years with the other kids, and instead of them being able to make fun of me, I would make fun of them. And then the gym teacher didn't like that, so he would stop the gym class. All right, time for a wrestling match. Gallagher, you're at the one end, and he'd pick somebody else who he was sure would beat me because just wanted to see me lose. But
Right.
he didn't know. I mean, I had two older brothers. I knew how to wrestle better than the wrestlers did, so I would quickly pin them and then on to the next. Um, Only
Okay.
one kid was foolish enough to challenge me in the locker room, and that didn't last very long. So I had the advantage of being confident enough to be an academic and not get sucked into the crowd of come fail with me.
Right.
I knew it. I couldn't fail if I tried, and I was smart enough to get straight A. So why not do it? And if you guys want to hold that against me, go ahead. See ya. And that's kind of the way it was. And then so teaching became more of a passion of how do I get everybody to want to learn? Why is there this faction of supposedly smart kids versus dumb kids? That had nothing to do with it. Kids who were doing their work and doing the skills were doing well, and the kids just blew it off, didn't do well. It was very simple. So how do you motivate kids to do the skills became the question in my head. And so it's like, well, and then the best experience I had was in college where I was a bio major because I liked biology because I had a good high school bio teacher. Okay. So I got interested in it. And then when I got to college, I guess the pre-medders, I was kind of that part of that crowd for about a year. But when it came time for the test, everybody was in my room asking me all the questions because I had all the notes because they didn't know how to take notes. And um, so basically, I had to teach the entire pre-med group on my floor all of the stuff from since the previous exam for them to get through the next exam. And that just kind of continued through sophomore. When I joined the fraternity, all the bio majors in the frat house wanted to join me for study sessions. And it became not just in the room, it became we had to use the tables downstairs in the hall, in the main hall of the house. In the dining hall, we had our own dining tables. We'd set up two or three of them, and we'd have sessions, and I would be leading them. And it was a lot of fun. I found I really enjoyed that. And then when I was a teaching assistant for the regular bio kids, the baby bio kids. So I got lab experience with that. That was fun because they didn't care about medical, so they just were trying to get through the class, and I would get, and then I got paid for it. I didn't even realize that. I did it for like 6 months, and my director was like, "Well, how many hours do you have tutoring?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." So, well, didn't you write them down? No, it says, "Well, you get paid $5 an hour. Give me a number and I'll make sure you get the money." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" It's great. I started really, wow, I can do what I love and get paid for it. Might have something here. So then when I decided to do it as a career, it just became a matter of getting the credits um, and getting started. And so right when supposedly there was a shortage and there was going to be hard positions to find even in the independent schools, which is where I wanted to teach. But I did find one, and it was kind of strange. The athletic director who was interviewing me called me by my fraternity nickname. Now, talk about a small world. And I'm like, wait a minute, how do you know that that's my nickname? Because, well, do you know Scott Baker? And I'm like, well, yeah, his name sounds familiar. And he's like, he was a freshman in your fraternity last year. I'm like, oh, you're his father. So that's why he knew me well before I even met him. So uh,
Well,
that was kind of interesting. And but yeah, that was what got me interested in teaching and biology is just an interest and being good at it. I was talented at it, and I liked doing things that I was good at. Yeah,
yeah, it makes sense.
yeah.
Oh, that
Did you ever
sounds
consider getting a doctorate? No. You know why? Did you ever talk to Dr. Kinzer about his doctorate experience?
with fruit flies.
Yeah, and how many years it took, and the
Uh,
funding struggles, and trying to get it published, and it's a lot of years of hard work and very little pay, and you may not even get much out of it. There's no
right,
guarantee your research is going to go anywhere and you're going to get a publication out of it, but that's what you have to do. Uh,
right,
and I was so sick of school and being with other teachers. Once again, in college, I thought I was better than they were. Turns out I was, didn't know it at the time. Um, so I had no desire to go on even to do a master's degree initially. My
Right.
boss at my first school made me do it 5 years into it. And so I had to do that part time. So I had to teach, coach, being a dorm parent. And on my free time, whatever little I had left, I was in graduate school part time, getting a master's. And then I was not going to get a PhD because you had to spend full time in the lab. I didn't want to do that. I like to be working with people, not
Right.
test tubes and solutions and fruit flies and whatever.
That makes sense.
And
Cool. See, what do we got? I understand that you're a basketball coach in addition to a teacher, which we've already touched on. Did
yeah,
you play basketball in your younger years? How did you like teaching biology compared to coaching basketball?
good questions. Playing in my younger years was sort of, once again, if you weren't on the team in grade school, you weren't getting there. High school was a different story because then that I made the team, no problem. And then as a junior, I was a starter. So I was mostly a defender. I couldn't score much. I didn't know how to shoot yet. Um, but basically, they would leave me alone because they knew I didn't couldn't shoot, and they would cover our two scorers, leaving me wide open. So I'd get this baseline jumper at will almost every time down the floor if they wanted to pass me the ball. And every now and then they would, and I would make 50% of it, but nobody was guarding me. It was easy. But defending, I was a very good defender, very quick. Once again, get very low on defense, strong legs, like a wrestler stance, and I could box out and rebound better than guys that were taller for the same reason. I could use the back of my legs, which are strong, and I could knock them around and outposition them and get a rebound. You always have to be careful about taking a forearm to the back of your head the next time down the floor when you do that. And I would typically, if somebody did that, I would say, all right, that's one. The next time if he did it again, I'd wait till he would jump, and then I would box him out in midair.
Oh
He
gosh.
would go boom, a whap whap,
Yeah.
and that would end that. Wouldn't get any trouble from him the rest of the game. It was a shame it had to come to that, but most games came to that. But the official always was wise to always get the bigger kid. He was the one committing the foul in the first place. I was merely retaliating. But so that was fun. In college, we played like intramurals. I learned how to shoot in college. I spent some time doing it and learned the mechanics of it. And then I became a very good shooter. Um, and everybody wanted me on their team, right? Um, and then when I had to coach it, I realized how little I actually understood about it. Really, the same thing with biology. I thought I knew the science better than I did, and so I had to learn on the fly both of those skills at the age of 22 and to refine them over the years. Um, but coaching basketball was interesting because the trying to get them to keep spread out and to use the clock to your advantage and to ball fake and be patient and not hot potato it around the floor like everybody does, or the way that the Swickler kids were still doing when I left there. They're a 2-3 zone, and a guard would get the ball in the wing, and he immediately instincts he wants to split the top two guys of the zone. And it's like, where are you going?
Right.
So they all they would trip, of course, expect a foul to be called, no foul, fast break the other way. My question to these kids is, where do you think you're going? Even if you did split those top two guys in the zone, who's waiting for you? Three other guys and behind them. You're not getting to the basket. And so you have to move the ball and then cut and use the pass to beat the zone. And boy, that's hard for impatient players to learn. They just want to get it and go and quickly do something because they're so nervous with it. Basketball has to be played, but be quick, but be calm. Very hard to do.
Right.
Very much like the game of golf. You got to get your mind sort of in it, but then let your physique do the rest once you have it. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
golf is it's definitely more of a physical sport than people think it is.
right. Oh yeah. I mean, if your mechanics are wrong in golf, you don't know where the ball's going. And the same thing with shooting and trying to teach kids to get that ball on the tips of their fingers and do that motion, right? Get it up off your palm and that.
I still remember you trying to teach us how to throw a football.
Right. Yeah. Get it behind you, elbow behind your head. And most people try to sidewinder and like, no, here and over the top.
A lot of people throw it
Same
like,
thing with the fingertips, you know.
yeah,
And some kids listened and did really well shooting wise. In fact, I don't know if you remember Mike Pella. I remember
no,
Owen Pella.
I don't
You know,
remember.
yeah. Well, he listened to me. He came up to me one day, bench player for the varsity, and says, "Coach, show me what you do when you shoot." I'm like, "What's what it is?" So hold it in your palm. And I said, "Now raise it up on your fingertips." And it's rolling over. Like, not just balance it. Keep it on your tips. Don't let it. And of course, you immediately relax it. When I know, put it back up. Turn. Keep it there. Keep it up. Your fingertips. Now just shoot it straight up in the air at yourself. Okay. And now I said, now let's go to the foul line. Can you make a free throw? And I moved in a little. Could make it. Now move back to the 3-point line. Now, so if you practice this technique now, 100 shots a day,
Right.
you should have it. Last game of the season, sure enough, we're up big. Mike Dean has the ball on a fast break, and Coach Palmer yells out, "Mike Pella!" And Mike was smart enough to stop drill because he was going to go in and score. He passes it back to Mike Pella, who catches the 3-point, raises up, and using my tip, and the
Oh,
horn sounded. The shot
oh,
shouldn't have counted, but the referees let it count. I mean, it was his only shot of his whole career, and then bang, it swished, didn't even hit the rim, and the whole place erupted, in applause. It's great. Um,
that's the stuff I miss about playing sports. Those moments.
Yeah, it really is. Those special moments. Then, yeah, you
I
remember them always.
yeah,
And the state championship banner in 2010. Yeah, I still remember it. Yeah.
so
It's
you
so
must,
hard to believe that Coach Palmer's no longer with us. It's hard to
yeah, no,
think about him. I keep thinking I want to text him or something. I think, no, I can't do that.
yeah. You must have had so many awesome memories from both coaching basketball and also teaching. You probably impacted thousands of people, honestly.
That's when it relates to the last question I think. Yeah, but yes, and yes to all of that. I mean, and it's something you may not, I wasn't even really aware of. And if there's a benefit to social media like Facebook, I was afraid to do it because I thought kids that I had angered would want to lash out or something. But no, they don't even contact you. It's only the people that you helped reach out and say thank you. And it goes all the way back to that first year at my first school. I'm hearing from those kids. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to
Yeah, I mean, you're very authentic and genuine too, so I can't imagine anyone would have like too big of a problem with you.
it. Yeah, it's not so much with me. They had problems elsewhere in their lives. Now, that particularly at that boarding school, if they lived in the dorm, they usually had major conflict issues with their parents, or they went through bad divorces, or um, the parents didn't want them around, kind of thing. This poor kid he was a seventh grader, right? And that was the minimum age to be in the boarding program. And so the mother calls up the admissions office. Okay, when does school start? I'm going to drop off my son at the dorm. So, well, the boarding kids are due to arrive Labor Day weekend, and then we'll get started right after that. So make sure he's there on that Saturday to move in. And she says, "Oh, well, I drove by and I saw some people already there. Who were they?" And she's like, "Oh, well, those are the preseason camp. You know, football camps going on and soccer camps going on." Says, "Oh, so I can drop him off tomorrow if I wanted to and have him join football camp." And the admissions person is like, "Well, yeah, you could, but he's in seventh grade. You surely want to do that?" Yes. And this poor kid literally got dumped
Oh
out on
gosh.
the station wagon because his mother wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So those are the type of kids that I would have trouble with in the class, and they just react. Weren't mad at me; they were mad at something else. But I was the one there for them to needle or to try to, So that's where a couple of my phrases I didn't use very much after that. But they start trying to argue with me in the middle of the class. Like, just be quiet, stop talking. Okay, if you want to
Yeah.
keep this discussion going, let's take a step outside and discuss it after class. And that
Right.
would shut them up because they actually thought I was actually going to physically harm them or something. I was like, no, I would never do that.
Right.
And then it was like a double period lab. and this kid was being and I think he had been beaten up that morning by his dad. Right,
Oh,
I didn't know that at the time, and so he's starting in on me. And so I did that same thing. It's like, how about between periods we just take a step out on the landing and discuss the matter? And he goes, all right. I'm like, all right, I'll see you there.
yeah.
So I go out on the landing with him. Here he comes. He follows me out. So he's shaking and sweating. He's like, all right, what are we gonna do? I'm like, what are you doing? We're not gonna do anything. I just want you to shut up and stop arguing with me. And he's like, oh, yeah, let's
Yeah.
duke it out in front of her,
Yeah, I
lady.
remember. Do you remember Mr. Marino from Strictly Academy?
Freddie Moreno, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, in fact, he owns and rents, he used to anyway, in a neighborhood just across the road from our development
oh,
on
really?
Winslow Ave. Yeah. I didn't know him very well. He was taught math in the middle school.
Yeah, he was my advisor in middle school, and one day in math class I must have been doing something that I shouldn't have been, but he like kicked me out. It's funny how you remember those things, but I love Mr. Marino. He was awesome. Um,
Yeah, very little interaction with it. Just we talked briefly. That was one of the weird things about that school. Is like you didn't really talk to other middle school teachers. We unless we were forced to do it, people just didn't do it. You didn't talk to them. And lower school, we didn't talk to them.
yeah,
And so I think it was good when they decided to reorganize the departments to have all three divisions meet and say, what's our plan here? What are we doing? And so the middle schools were asking us teachers, us upper teachers, what do you need these kids to know so we can get them prepared for it? And like, we'd tell them, and then they would do it. And then lower school teachers got to ask the middle schools, what did these kids need to know to get ready for you? And became more coherent. But left to our own devices, we didn't really communicate very well. And
right,
teachers in general don't. And I didn't really communicate with the other departments really well either. And
yeah,
I communicate with math, anybody who was in the coaching staff, the phys ed staff. Um, and unless I was forced to talk to a history department member, I typically wouldn't, or a
that
world
makes
language teacher, I wouldn't. You're sort of forced to deal with them when you had meetings of advisors where you were
uh,
discussing kids' grades typically and who we needed to get help with. Or who needed extra help. And who
right,
your advisee has a C here in this class. What are you doing about it? And I'll go talk to their teacher, whatever.
yeah. It was
But that was it. Very isolationist. And probably it's a negative of the profession in general. We should really communicate more with each other than we do. But
right.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that probably could be improved, but I remember I was in Dr. Kinzer's advisory, which was like attached to yours.
yeah, right. That's right.
But I remember still like me and Adam Brown would always stay after class, and when we were prepping for a test, and you'd you'd re go through um like all of the cells or whatever we were learning. I still
Sure. Yeah,
you
those
draw.
pathways are tough. And but critical and as to where we're headed later in the discussion because if you don't and most people don't even unfortunately most of the teachers don't understand those metabolic pathways and I had the time to study it as a grad student at Villanova and getting my master's but I also had the time in the summers to study it myself because I really had to do a self experiment at that point because what do I weigh now? I'm 152. Uh, I weighed 185 when I stopped teaching because I was big into powerlifting and whatnot. Um, but where was my memory? Where was I headed with that? No idea. I don't know either. But yeah, I was physically involved in weightlifting. Ah, I lost my train of thought. Where were we? Yeah.
No idea. We can just move on to the next
Yeah.
question. Um, I guess we didn't really finish up with this last one. What did you like, or how did you like teaching biology compared to teaching coaching basketball?
Ooh, yeah. Compared to coaching basketball, that's a great question. I it's a close call. Um, I guess, but when I got to Sewickley, I got to focus more on basketball. Whereas when I was at Perk Yeoman, I was football first. And then basketball came after that very shortly. I had very little time to think in between. And now when coaching basketball at Swickley became such a good experience because of Coach Palmer, because he really knew what he was doing. Most coaches don't. And he taught the kids skills that I did not think could be taught. I didn't think you could teach court vision. He said, "No, yeah, you can. You got to make them do it." And that's what taught me that the value of using all 5 seconds after you picked up your dribble, or even if you get in the paint, using a ball fake or two. You've got 3 full seconds. You got more time than you think. So you make your players read the defense. Very challenging, but I reveled in that because I had the JV red first, and then I had the JV black for the rest of the time I was there. And getting them to finally learn how to do that was great. By the end of the season, we were very competitive. And they would leave, and I had to restart the next year, same new group of kids, and reteach the whole same set of skills. But I would say, I like coaching as much as teaching biology. That's a little bit of a difficult admission to make, but I guess it was really the competitive fire in basketball because you sort of got to know the other schools and the other coaching staffs, the ones that would stay anyway. And some we got along, most we got along with really well. And there are just a couple of staffs that we did not get along well. And they made it very clear that they didn't want to get along with us either. That was the Incension staff. And Ulch initially, and I think they kind of warmed up to each other a little bit towards the end there. But the people at Incension, it didn't surprise me when they closed for good, because I mean they're just an awful group of people. And but that was and they were all complaining about whenever we would step onto their floor and how unfair the advantage. It's like, what are you talking about? They were just jealous. They were winning all the Sexton titles before Win Palmer got there. And then we started winning them, and they felt, oh, well, we should be winning because we're an Ascension and we have. So what? Who cares? I mean, can't play on reputation. I mean, but yeah, that challenge and wanting to beat those other coaches, even at the JV level, I still wanted to win at that level, even though I knew it wasn't necessary or expected for that matter. But then it became kind of a neat after school thing to do. And I would coach the JV black game, get them in there, come out, get the book set up, and have somebody run over and get the singer for the national anthem. I would introduce, and I was the MC for the event, and I enjoyed that, and people got to know me just from doing that. And the interaction with the parents was great. I can only remember a couple of negative interactions with parents over the years with basketball. Playing time. Yeah. Why anybody be complaining about playing time at the JV level, I don't know, but they did. But yeah, I'd say they're about equal. I really enjoyed both to the same degree at Sewickley, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There, yeah, I still remember. At the time you weren't coaching, but I still remember some of my best memories were on my first year in ninth grade on JV Red with Coach Patrick Phillips. He was only there for like a year or two.
Oh, that's right. I remember him now. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we had a really fun game against Shadyside. I still remember. But yeah, a lot of really good memories from both golf, basketball, and tennis that I still hold on to this day.
But we went to Shadyside. We had a series of injuries and a bunch of kids had the flu. So I had 5 players. It was me in a van with 5 players.
Oh well.
Drive over to Shadyside to play a JV game, and we had one tall kid, Daniel. What was his name? Daniel Salterbolts was his last name.
Yeah.
And I had to tell the guys, look, I'm going to take your timeouts. I'm going to space them out as rest. You guys got to watch your fouls because I don't want to be out there with 4 guys. And it was neat. They really played well. And I think we were ahead at one time in the second half even and playing really well. And then we just got exhausted because 5 guys, no rest. I was taking time out. Every now and then I'd tell a guy, hey, foul, so we can get a rest. There's nobody in foul trouble. but it was neat because what happened as the kids exited, all five of them, the referees normally they take off immediately. Never see them. Both of the officials stayed there, and I knew both of them from over the years. They'd worked JV games forever. They stayed there and waited. Every play, all five guys with this, they all said, "Nice game, men. Nice job, men," because they knew how hard that was.
Right.
And so they didn't say player or kid. No, they nice job, men. They said and that
Right.
meant a lot. I hope it meant a lot to them. It meant a lot to me. It's like, yeah, that should mean something to you guys. I think I mentioned that to them in the locker room. I hope I did. But yeah, that was a neat memory. Yeah, of,
Yeah.
some of the things just will not forget. No way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely got the energy of a coach. I respect your energy. You've got a fighting spirit.
That's a fighting spirit. Yep, it's a sort of leading into one other question, I think. Yeah, so yeah, we can. But yes, definitely, you have to have that in you. And like I said, I don't know if I was always that way. It was made to be that way by being a middle, having two older brothers,
Right.
always competitive.
Yeah.
Um, Even our high school friends who we just got back together for fishing trips since 2005, I think. But still, who's going to catch the most fish? And I still want to beat my friend. He still wants to beat me. And, yeah, it's competitive.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess question number five: are you spiritual in any way? What about religious? Do you think Jesus, Muhammad, and the Buddha were real people?
Good series of questions. Absolutely, yes, to the first part. Are you spiritual in any way? Yeah, absolutely. And when in, in definitions, we can clear up if necessary. But to think that our eyes and our other senses can detect everything that's going on is rather hubristic in
Right.
my mind. And you think back of before the microscope was invented, bad humors cause disease, right? So let's bleed the patient, let the bad humor out, and the patient will get better. It's like whoa. Until somebody came along and invented the microscopes. Hey guys, there's these little things that we can't see that are there. Um, it also just opened up this whole new world because people could actually see it. They could see the microorganisms with the microscope. Um, so are we to assume that just our Earth and our what we can visualize in our solar system, our galaxy or whatever is the only thing out there, and it just appeared out of nowhere? And the human mind, I don't think is capable of answering that question, but it's something that you feel in your mind, and I think that most people on the Earth feel it, which makes it real enough for me. Just because I can't see it or I can't merely officially define a spirituality, but I definitely have one, and I try to follow it in a series of principles,
Right.
which leads. Here comes the cat. Screwed up my keyboard. Um, um, so yes, spirituality, having a belief in something that you cannot see. It's very much. I think I started my lesson off with what's the difference between faith and science.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I guess the kid, what's the definition of science? They'll memorize it, body of knowledge gained through observation and experimentation. I said, well, what's faith? And someone will finally come up, oh, a belief in something that you cannot see. And I'm like, that's right. So they really have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
Right. So you can have whatever faith you want and spirituality, whatever you want, and still be a scientist and study things that you can see and manipulate in a lab and experiment with, make discoveries. So people got hung up on, well, if you believe in a God, that somehow you can't believe in science, which makes no sense to begin with, to even say something like that. But um, since they don't have anything to do with each other, why would you try to even connect them? It doesn't make any sense to do it. And I saw less and less of that as the years went on, and even the parents sort of got one because they would come and think there's some kind of conflict between evolution and religion. I'm like, no, there's not. It's only in
Right.
your head. They have nothing to do with each other. Um, so maybe you could say, why can't you, if you have trouble with evolution, which you shouldn't, biological evolution, it's like, well, can't you just say, well, a higher power is in control of that process? And how
Right.
can you prove or disprove that? So you really, so it really comes down to what a faith-based um, spirituality. Yeah, I guess is really the answer to that. Yeah, done a lot of thought about that over the years because you can get that mixed up in your head in the field of science and trying to get an answer that you may not be able to get. You know, and same thing with trying to study different religious philosophies and where did these arise? You know, and so when once again you're dealing with when you're dealing with the human mind, people say, well, you can't prove that it exists. And I say, yeah, you can also prove that it doesn't.
Right.
So is there a right or versus a wrong? No. I mean, but that's where the faith comes in. You believe in something you can't see. I mean, I do believe that when I leave this earth, I'm going to see my family members again. And, you know,
Right.
there will be a heaven and a hell, and there will be a judgment day. And that's just sort of, um, do I think about it all the time? No. But there's a time and a place. Yeah, for it, for sure. Yeah.
That's cool to hear from a biology teacher.
Yeah, it's. I think more. I'm not alone in that. People don't like to discuss it a lot, and I don't know why, but it seems to be perfectly within the realm of discussion.
Yeah. Cool.
And religious is depending on how you define. Once again, a religion. What do I belong to a religion? So if I'm a Roman Catholic, what are the principles um, that body of people follows?
Right.
What body do they follow? To help them live life. I mean, because that's sort of what people are kind of asking for. What's the how do I live life? What should I do with my life? And so then you're trying to look for guidance, if you will, and that's where the religious principles come in, and they're related to the faith. Um,
Pay it
now,
forward.
yeah, pay it forward, right? And
Be nice to neighbors.
if you follow, particularly Jesus' teachings, you love one another as I have loved you. You know, the golden rule: do unto others as they do unto you. But his rule is even, you know, you still have to love your enemies, but pray for them.
Right.
And that's what people have a lot of trouble with. And it's not to the point where you get steamrolled, but you know, and you certainly don't want to get into any physical altercations with people that are disagree with you religious wise. And why would people even want to do that unless they were trained to think that way? Which I think what's
Right.
going on now. I mean, I think it's absolutely. How did we get to this point in um, where people think it's okay to just to kill Jewish people because they're Jews? Like,
Right.
didn't we go through this 100 years ago, and didn't we learn our lessons then? And the answer appears to be no. It just got sort of shuttled under the undercurrents. Now it's sprung up somehow in recent years, and I don't get that at all. But I anything that my former colleague and good friend of mine, Eric Levy, who's an Orthodox Jew himself, um, he will send me posts, and I will share them on Facebook, and I'm going to share every one of them because if you don't, people forget, and then
Right.
and when they forget, they think it's okay to hurt other people, you know, and it's just no, it's not. It's not okay to hurt other people, and
Yeah.
what your reasoning is, you know. Um, and particularly in the Catholic Church had its shortcomings, a lot of them, some which affected my family members. So that was really bad. And so those that those priests that they shuttled around and hid from people, um, they not all of them have been called out on the carpet for it yet, and they really ought to be. Um, but I think a lot of when I was talking to other family members about this, they seem to had such a strong emotional reaction to that, to those priests that were engaged in that, they dismissed the entire principle. They threw out the faith with it and decided they didn't believe in anything. And I'm like, you sure you want to go that far with it?
Right.
Prosecute the offenders, let's get them out of the priesthood. Or if you, and I actually went and they allowed me to speak at St. John of God Church over in what's the name of it? Is it McKees Rocks?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I had a lot to say, so I had a lot written down, and sure enough, when the priest opened up the mic to the audience and said, "The mic is yours. What do you want to say about this?" And nobody stood up. I'm like, well, I'm standing up and I'm going up to that microphone, and I ripped into him pretty good, but at the same time, I said, really, what's going to save the faith is not you priests. Thank you for giving me the microphone, but it sent you guys essentially out as far as the parishioners are concerned, and we'll continue to have mass. We'll just do it like we used to do in people's homes,
Right.
and you guys are out. I said, I said, I think the women were going to be the ones that were going to save it, the faith, the
Right.
religion, if you will, not the faith. I mean, the getting together of people and reading the scriptures and trying to apply it to your lives, and yeah, and not put up with the dictatorship of the priesthood or the dictatorship of the bishop, or and these institutions were created. I don't think Jesus would be too happy with what occurred after he was gone, and in terms of what happened to his teachings and his principles, and
Right.
a lot of the stuff that is done now in rituals is just made up stuff that people thought it was a good idea, and once they had the money coming in, ding, 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 ding.
Right.
Now they knew they could lead their flock if they felt they could lead their flock anywhere they wanted to take them, they could get their money from them too. And then so it's kind of weird how the most expensive telescope to view the galaxies, the best one on the planet, is at the Vatican.
Really?
Yeah, because they had the money to build it and pay for the builders to build it. Yeah, so they got more money than anybody else. So that's what gets them in trouble a lot, and people tend to ditch their own faith because of it, and then that's where it goes too far, because then you start becoming your own god,
Right.
and that's where you got to really watch it, or not necessarily that you what's my phrase that I use? You tend to, instead of I don't want to use the word worship. Instead of worshiping a god, you end up looking in the mirror and you end up worshiping what you're seeing, what's looking back at you in the mirror.
Right.
And you think you're the know-it-all. And it's like, wait a minute, you can't possibly know much about anything. I mean, why would you anoint yourself? But that's what happens. People, if they ditch a faith, they have to believe in something.
Right.
In order for life to have any kind of meaning. And that's what people generally search for, is what's my meaning in life? And for me to find it in teaching and coaching was great for me. And
Yeah.
and I felt that although I could have, I thought about it for a year or so going into the pharmaceutical industry to make a lot of money, like my cousins were doing. But I just knew that wasn't for me. And I didn't want to spend my life doing that, doing sales work. I mean, I wanted to, it ends up being salesmanship when you're a teacher, keeping the audiences, keeping the kids' attention, but you're getting something. I'm getting the meaning from it, and I'm hoping transferring the meaning of what life should be to the students.
Right.
In some way. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be biology. Maybe basketball was. I'm sure people learned a lot more from me from coaching than they did teaching in some aspects. But yeah, the whole, don't ditch the faith if you have one, and don't ditch your spiritualism because of what other people are doing or what other people are saying or thinking. Or who cares? I don't care what anybody else thinks or
Right.
says, pretty much, unless unless they physically get in my face and make it tough for me to move around in the world, I just will avoid them. You know.
Right. Cool. Well, we're running low on time, so I'm gonna jump to one of the next questions, and we can do
Sure.
another video if that's cool with you.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to keep these videos somewhere in between, like anywhere from 15 minutes to ish.
We've
Uh,
gone, we're about an hour, running up on an hour here. So yeah.
yeah. So last question, I guess. Um, do you think your younger self would be happy with who you have become and all that you've accomplished over the years?
Yes, my younger self would. Um, it's a good question too, because what I think I don't know. It's hard to, it's looking back on it. This is very much of the benefit of hindsight, of course, because I've already lived out looking back. Was I looking ahead when I was that young? And the answer is yes, I was. And I think that maybe perhaps that's an exception rather than the rule. I don't know. But for me, it was an easy choice to want to be able to teach and then eventually evolve into coaching and being at the high, learning the material that I learned at a high level um, became the meaning, became the passion and part of it, and it all coalesced. So I think, yeah, the younger me would say, yeah, you had a goal in mind when you were young and you set out and you did it. But what's the next? You know, I'm 60 and who knows how long I'm going to live. If I live to be 90, like my father's currently, his father lived to be 94. I mean, why not shoot for the stars? And if you got another 20 to 30 years on the planet, what can you contribute,
Right.
positively? You know, if it's not with teaching, what can I do elsewhere? So we'll see. I don't know what that even looks like yet. I'm playing a musical instrument, picking up the guitar in my spare time, so maybe I can get music back into my life. Quit the piano when I was a kid. Big mistake. Should have stayed. Um, we'll see if I still have my dexterity in my fingers. I can still
I
play
got
the
you.
guitar and learn how to play it first, and that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But yeah, younger self would say, "Yeah, I did all right. I did all right." Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, we'll try to do another video sometime soon to cross over those other questions that we didn't discuss today. But Mr. Gallagher, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I'm glad we finally got it going and had a good discussion.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so we'll see you guys in the next video.
Yep. Just let me know, and we'll schedule it. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Take care.